I'm going to talk today about two things, design and value. The first one being about the value of design when creating new financial services. And the second thing being about how do we actually create value for people. Let me start with a personal anecdote. Many years ago, my father took me to a hidden spot in Paris on a busy Rue Vaugirard, pointing at this. This is one of the rare examples of a maître étalon installed 1797 to help familiarize the population with a new standard unit of length. Without going into too much detail about this fascinating history of science and how this unit came to life, the place struck me for two reasons. One, the impact of developing such a tool to measure and putting it in a public space so that everyone could actually start measuring value. And secondly, the impact, or actually the act of design behind every measure of unit. So my hypothesis is that technology is not only changing new ways of creating value, but also new ways of measuring value. When I say the word design, I mean an approach that helps actually deal with complexity that we are all facing in today's unpredictable world. Design helps uncover the sweet spot of innovation, which is about the overlap of desirability, feasibility, and viability. So creating a unique user experience, as we all have experienced, is not a trivial thing, and I've seen how design can actually help get there. So rather than trying to predict the future through numbers and lots of expertise, we should rather try to design it together. So what does design have to do with money, finance, and banking? Well, it's part of daily life. We all have to deal with it and juggle it amongst many other things. And design can help actually come over these frictions and tensions that get created. But design can not only help simplify and come up with an easier, nicer way to deal with finances, I believe it can actually lower the effort of dealing with it at all, so that instead we can take care of things that we actually care even more about. I brought three stories with me. We heard about a lot of numbers today. I want to talk about three things which are people, and taking their perspective to be inspired and understand their behaviors more deeply. Secondly, I'm going to talk about prototyping as a way to keep evolving ideas and seeing how behaviors actually work. And thirdly, I'm going to talk about collaboration, the importance of the organizational setup to keep changing and innovating. Let's start with people. I would like to take you with me to Mexico City. Last year, an IDEO.org team, IDEO's nonprofit arm, traveled to Mexico together with CGAP, the group focused on financial inclusion at the World Bank, and Bancomer to uncover opportunities for new, accessible saving products for low-income Mexicans. The team spoke to a variety of people to really understand how they deal with saving in general. And here's one of them, Bibiana. Bibiana actually successfully built a house and is working on a second one. And she's done that through a system of transferring in person the money she's making to give it to her brother, who takes it by bus to the village she's from to purchase new materials. So what the team quickly learned that it was almost most of these people they spoke to were not using formal banks. They were using a fascinating array of informal, at-home solutions for saving money, from jacket pockets to group saving circles, or even the mattress like Bibiana. So the question really became, how do we beat the mattress? Because the group that emerged out of the unbanked were the debanked, the people who would rather by rational choice prefer a complex setup to control their saving habits themselves. And these debanked demonstrate a point of view that is actually banks are maybe not even needed to them. Another person we met was Carla. she manages her day-to-day finances also in a very quite different way. Although when she was asked, do you save? She said, oh no, I don't actually have the money. But Carla is actually a savvy investor. She buys discounted toys at one point throughout the year to resell it for higher value right before the holidays. So again, rather than looking for two dormant ways to save money somewhere, people were looking for ways to be more proactively dealing with their money. Another interesting phenomena coming out of Mexico is that money is quite social. There are these rotating credit associations called tandas that are really important and popular. So a group of people comes together on a regular basis and puts a set amount of money in the pot to hand it over to provide cash to the actual members who need it the most. And what's so fascinating about this, I believe, is that the team outsources trust and advice by knowing exactly more about the people, speaking about reputation and the localness of it. But also there's a sense of obligation to return that money because you know the people you actually lend it from. Trust and advice is also coming from the Tanda organizer, which you see on a regular basis. So here's one of the early concepts the team came up with. And I think it's interesting because of two things. One, the change of the role of the service provider, the bank, becoming actually the organizer of the personal tandas. Thinking about providing materials and assets to have people meet more regular, helping them to customize the actual group setup, and leveraging technology for notifications and reminders. So they're really amplified the social elements, and instead of getting rid of it, technology is really there to amplify it. So design for value here is really about blending both the human side and the technology and building on these social ties that have not only always at scale the value, but also in the small groups. And technology doesn't only compete, but complements and enables these informal ways. So what I would give you from this story is really take a people's perspective. People inspire, but it's also quite critical that we really take the time to understand the behaviors we're designing for to identify a new opportunity. The next story I want to share with you is taking place in Switzerland, change of scenery. An over 150-year-old life insurance company, Swiss Life, embarks on a journey to understand what innovation means to them and what the future of their business is going to look like. The broad and open question they ask is, what's the future of financial security going to look like? Here are two people, Lucas and Amelie, fictional characters that the IDEO team designed to understand actually who the new service they would come up with would be built for. And although you may not know Amelie and Lucas, you may know and have recognized some of their behaviors. Lucas, in his early 20s, is really focused on short-term goals. He needs to understand the money he's coming in and out, probably from his parents, but he's really not thinking about a 30 to 40-year-old life insurance policy. Or Amelie, in her mid-30s, knows also that she needs to actually plan for the future, but doesn't want to risk her rich lifestyle at the moment. So what would help Lucas and Amelie bring their future actually closer? Well, a few hypotheses the team came up with. One, that peers drive motivation, not experts. All the people we spoke to, and I'm sure you did too, would start with, well, a friend told me, a colleague told me, again, speaking about reputation and the trust built in the existing ties that we all know. So how can we actually bring in this peer aspect and amplify the social element? The second hypothesis was around that people relate much more to goals, emotional goals, than to actual numbers. The picture shown here is an early exploration where the team played with the notion of how much would image versus numbers actually help people imagine what they would like to save for. So having this set of initial hypotheses, the team tried to understand how to move forward and accelerate learning. And knowing that setting up a banking infrastructure is not a trivial thing, they started a side conversation. So what you see here is HOI, a microsite that the team designed within 6 weeks to test some of these assumptions. So a public page was launched with the name HOI, and the users were asked a bunch of questions you see here. They're in German, but what they do is basically ask people to enter a saving goal, how much their income is. And one piece that was really important to the team to learn was about expenses and budgeting. So you see here a bunch of colored sliders that would help people almost create a self-profile of their expenses, their rent, their type of vacation they make, their consumption patterns. And this data was entered not for an institution, an organization, but for themselves. Because at the end of the page, they would get a first indicator how they compared themselves, their expenses, with the Swiss average. This data is publicly available. So here again, comparison starts to play a big role when it's about understanding your own financial needs. 4 months later, 100, the actual offer launched. 100 helps people set financial goals and reach them. What you see here is the inspiration page of people who decided to publicly share their saving goals with the 100 community. So you'll notice a completely look and feel, brand, set of functionality, and that basically HOI helped inform the final design for this new offer. So evolving this based on initial hypotheses early on is really critical to actually then later minimize the risk of having a huge customer base that you don't want to disappoint. But especially when you're creating something new and you have lots of questions, there's evidence out there in the market, not in our heads and not only through our expertise. 100 is live at the moment. The banking infrastructure will be set up this fall, and the internal Swiss Life venture team is growing. So design for value is really about human financials. And I really liked how this morning people talked about going beyond the verticals. 100 is really trying to do that. You notice the Pinterest-like experience, and that's exactly how we can develop new mental models going beyond the verticals of banking products and organizations, but look at it from a customer experience point of view and how people use their financial apps right next to their social media apps on their phones. So helping them to frame goals around their lives, look at what you offer through their eyes, will bring up new opportunities. So stretching yourself and keep learning and evolving around your product is really critical. The third story happened somewhere, or more precisely, in a multinational bank, a global institution that wanted to enable their employees in an open, collaborative, and creative process. Branching out from traditional idea management tools, they decided to use OI Engine, which is a platform that IDEO developed to leverage the power of communities within and beyond organizations. What you see here is one of the first nonprofit challenges that we launched with Jamie Oliver, but it basically shows how OI Engine works. You pose a design problem to a community, and you move the problem through a process which is about inspiration, concepting, evaluating, and selecting a concept. Why I'm showing you this is because with this particular example in this multinational bank, the 31% participation achieved show that by creating an open system, you create engagement. Many times we think, okay, how do we get people on our thing? Well, sometimes it's actually easier than you think. You need to open your system, probably more. And another proof is this wonderful steady curve of growth, showing that instead of having a honeymoon phase where you get lots of traffic and traction in the beginning, but then people stop using such a tool, OI Engine managed to have more and more people engaged through word of mouth and through intrinsic motivation to actually work on that particular challenge. So what if we leverage the crowd within our organization, but more importantly beyond, for vertically organized businesses to keep changing and innovating? And what if we turn financial institutions into platforms? We heard a lot about this morning, to provide tools for third-party developers and moving beyond transaction. So collaborating is a core skill when it's about exploring new futures at scale. To sum up these three stories, it's, in my view, about blending both the human and the technology side, but also looking at it from the human perspective and turning financial institutions into platforms. So what's value? We talked about the branchless, cardless, moneyless society, but really when we think about it, money has been so far the main measure of value, and it's really a medium of exchange and a measure of value. Instead, it keeps changing as well, and it will continue to change. So what if instead we start thinking about value from a consumer point of view? I stumbled upon this ad, I'm sure you've seen it as well, but why I'm showing you here, because I think it has three critical questions on it. Ask yourself, who will this help, what we're delivering and offering? Will it make life better? And can you really make a difference with your products? So think about what value is actually equivalent and can be translated to. Is it optimism, expertise, knowledge, access, times? We had heard a lot this morning about, but I'm sure you will come up with more, what value can be translated for. So new money, let's ask new value. What form, shape, and role will you have? I think we can all contribute to the answers of this question, but one wonderful quote from John Mader I would like to leave you with is that in an age when it's possible to engineer and build absolutely anything, we have time and opportunity to focus on feelings and not just the possibilities that technology now affords. Thank you very much.
And I've just got one quick and pretty simple question. How do you go about designing a bank for the new age?
I would include the people who want to actually use the bank. I would make them part of the process and let them actually design it.
Does it have to be a physical place as well as a digital place?
It will be many things, but I think it has to have a purpose that everyone believes in.
Okay, well, there's a few banks around the corner. I'd just like to see who grabs your business card on the way out. Thank you very much.
Thank you.